Welcome back, attendees. I would like to welcome Mr. Sagar Kurade, Managing Director for Suman Food Consultants. He would lead an esteemed panel and a discussion for collaboration and technology transfer opportunities under Atmanirbhar Bharat. Over to you, Sagarji.
Thank you so much, Monica. It's an absolute pleasure talking with an esteemed panel on this important topic. Friends, we all know the current pandemic the world is facing, the worst in 100 years. We are also in a new geopolitically aligned world, and there are supply chain disruptions that have happened and are happening currently, and which are leading to thoughts which need to be reflected on, such as how does one move forward in the current scenario? Are there any technology transfer opportunities, collaboration opportunities that are happening? And we have an esteemed panel today to throw some light on the same. Let me introduce them. First and foremost, we have Mr. Sunanda Rajendran. She is the Secretary General of Indo-African Chamber of Commerce. It is looking into areas with regard to trade between India and the African continent. We have Mr. Mark Rossman. He is the Agriculture Attaché with U.S. Embassy, U.S. Consulate in India. We have Mr. Rajesh Nath. He represents VDMA. VDMA is a collaboration of German Engineering Federation of Machinery Manufacturers, and he is sitting in India. He's also, by the way, a Cross of the Order of Merit as awarded by German government. Then we have Mr. Chandramohan Gupta, who is the founding member of PACE and has a tremendous experience of more than 28 years in various areas, especially in food processing, and latest for last 18 years with Coca-Cola. And we will be joined by Dr. Sauro Manzetti, who will be taking into account from Indo-Italian Chamber, who will be sharing his thoughts at some point of time on the subject matter. So with that, gentlemen, I would love to start the panel discussion, starting Sunandaji with you, as we have the more. If you can share a little bit perspective in 2 minutes with regard to the current status of trade, especially with regard to agri and food processing sector between India and Africa, and throw some light on it.
Thank you, Sagar. See, India and Africa partnership is a very good partnership. India is the third largest trading partner of Africa. We have already crossed over $70 billion in trade and about $50 billion in investment. And with the changing global landscape in agriculture, food processing, India and Africa has emerged as a key partner in contributing to global food security. And today, in the comparable agroclimatic and socio-economic conditions, which create a potential for enhanced cooperation in this sector. Now, because of this COVID pandemic, the progress has come to some standstill, but now the market has regained its momentum, and wherever we have stopped in last year, there is a momentum now. Unlock conditions are opening up, and slowly, most of the African countries, the flights have been opened. So the business is getting momentum, but by large, I hope by November end, it will get fair momentum as it was earlier. Thank you.
Lovely. Mark, if you can throw some light.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Kurade, for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be here today and with this esteemed panel. From the United States perspective, we present we have a very strong agricultural relationship with India, both in agricultural research, but also in agricultural trade. In fact, United States while it exports $2.2 billion in agricultural products to India, including tree nuts, ethanol, cotton, and soybeans, India has a trade surplus of $3.1 billion, and much of that is in seafood, for instance. It's almost half of India's exports, what we consider agricultural products, and various other products, including rice, soybean meal, and others. So, there's always presenting opportunities, very, unique opportunities for the U.S. to promote and to increase market access. Certainly, there are many agricultural trade barriers that do exist. They're not insurmountable, but there are those that we tend to deal with, including access to biotechnology, red meat, complex packaging and labeling requirements that we sometimes see, but also food level tariffs, often over 40%. That is to say that, there are some complexities in trade barriers, but overall, the United States has always seen ourselves as being optimistic and being able to work with in the Indian market and vice versa. So happy to continue this discussion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Rajesh, on to you.
Right. Good afternoon to all the viewers and also to the co-panelists and to our moderator, Sagar. Friends, the Indo-German relationship is a very old historical relationship, a strong relationship. The bilateral trade among the two countries is almost around 21 billion euros and has been growing over the years. When we look at exports from Germany to India, it's roughly to the tune of about 13 billion, and from India to Germany, it's about roughly 8 billion. Now, there are around, I would say, 1,500 German companies operating in India, employing almost 500,000 people here in India. The machinery sector plays an important role in this bilateral trade. In fact, almost 1/3 of this bilateral trade is in the machinery sector. Coming specifically to the food processing and packaging sector, the export of German machines to India in food processing packaging sector is around 120 million euros. We have around 35 German companies in this sector from food processing technology and packaging technology who are well established in India. And when we look at agriculture machineries, it's about the export from Germany to India roughly to the tune of about 25 million euros. And there are about 14 to 15 German companies from agriculture machinery sector who are well established in India. And amongst the European Union, Germany is the biggest trading partner with India. So it's a well-established relationship, and we are hoping that with the passage of time, this relationship, the bilateral trade among the two countries would increase. Thank you.
Lovely. If Saurav Manzetti from Indo-Italian Chamber, if he's there, Saurav, can you hear us? I guess we will move to Chandramohan. Chandramohan, if you can share a little bit perspective from India, because from point of view of collaboration and technology transfer opportunities on the subject, if you can throw some light from your perspective for 2 minutes, and then we can move to some questions also.
Sure. Good afternoon, friends, members of the panel. I would like to talk about food processing from a more beverage perspective, but I think what we are currently experiencing is relevant to the other sectors of food sectors. Coca-Cola is the system that I have been working for the last 18 years. What we have realized is that each time there has been a gigantic kind of an event like a World War I or a World War II, deep depressions, economic depressions, we have always seen that it offers huge opportunities to the food processing sector. is because it kind of brings about a shift in the pattern of consumption. People would like to stock products. People would like to harvest. So that the time between harvest and to the table increases in times of uncertainties. So it in some sense provides a kind of an impetus immediately the moment you come out of the stress. So that is something that we are also planning as far as beverage industry is concerned. I'm sure it would also be true for the other food processing sectors. We are one of the only few sectors, and I have limited visibility of what is happening in other countries of Asia. But in India, we are clearly seeing at different levels within the food processing sector, whether they are at the farm level, they are at the intermediary level, or they are at the refined level. We are seeing an accelerated investment coming in as we speak, because everybody is sensing that the moment we come out of the stress, given the reminiscences of supply chain disruption, because you can as a consumer, you as a citizen can take in disruption when it comes to other elements of your evolving lifestyle, but you cannot accept disruptions when it comes to food chain. So we are seeing this as an opportunity, and the good news is that uh, we are seeing investments across, whether it is in machinery, whether it is transportation, whether it is cold storage. We are seeing an increasing attempt to up the capacity. So this is something which I would like to leave with the group.
Lovely. Thank you. Soro, are you there? Can you hear us? I believe we have a video, we have some interruption from Soro's side. Panelists to keep themselves muted till they are requested. Yeah, I request the panelists to keep themselves muted in case of any background noise, which will help to kind of avoid any background issues. With that, let me share a little bit with Mark. Mark, I would love your thoughts. We just had recently agri-reform bills being introduced in India, which is a major step, personally, in my opinion, same to the likes of how it was in 1991, where we had a market opening economy reforms that took place. But we would like an outsider perspective on this. How do you see the agriculture reform bills and the status of it currently in India?
Thank you for that question, Sagar. It's a very unique time, right, to be in India from the agricultural standpoint, because the farm bills, and in my opinion, are certainly can be transformative. You're talking about major legislation that, you mentioned 1991. You could almost go all the way back to 1955 when the Essential Commodities Act was, I believe, first put in place. And,
yes.
And I think we're cautiously optimistic that we'll see some liberalizing, let's say, of the agricultural sector, certainly with providing increased access to markets for farmers throughout India, but also for increased investment opportunities. One of the things that has been mentioned is, this will lead towards investments from companies for improved infrastructure to reduce post-harvest loss, and certainly that can affect the whole supply chain, which includes certainly, processed fruit products, let's say, in India. So to me, I think there are welcome steps, the farm bills. I know this is something that we think that will provide opportunities down the road. It might take some time, though, however, to, just based on the nature of these bills, before we actually see the gains that could be realized, especially in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. While you have agricultural reforms, but also trying to recover from from the shutdown that took place in March this year. So, there's a lot happening, obviously, in India in the agricultural sector from a policy standpoint. But by and large, to answer your question, yeah, we think the farm bills long term can be good. So I'll stop there.
Great, thanks. Mark, Rajesh, from your perspective, because you represent German machinery suppliers and federations, manufacturers, so forth, give us a perspective with regard to the processing technologies and opportunities that are currently emerging between India and German manufacturers in terms of collaboration or technology transfers.
Absolutely, Sagar. I think there's a very good potential collaboration among the German companies and the Indian entrepreneurs. As I mentioned earlier, we have about 35 odd German companies from the technology side when we talk about food processing and packaging technology. In Germany, I represent the German Engineering Federation, VDMA. We have roughly around 250 German companies from food processing and packaging who are members of VDMA in this sector. Now, certainly there has been a lot of development. We have some very well-established companies who have set up base, also manufacturing base. Also, they are doing development as well as sort of a lab setup to do the testing for the equipment. And I think one of the biggest advantages, Sagar, I see for the local industry is also that when a foreign, be it a German or any other foreign company, when they come to India and establish their setup in India, now they are looking also to source from India and to source from the local manufacturers here. And I think this is where it is a win-win situation for both the sides, because it gives ample opportunity also for the local industry to become suppliers to the foreign companies. And from our experience, many times this relationship, which perhaps starts in India, can also develop into a global relationship, because if the company is happy sourcing from India, in fact, some of their other global subsidiaries would also then like to source from India.
Yeah.
We have good examples also of joint ventures among the German and the Indian companies. Of course, the latest trend is that the companies would like to set up their own subsidiaries. Earlier on, when there was no possibility of having a 100% subsidiary, the route for the foreign companies was to come through the joint venture route. And now over the period of time, so what we have seen, Sagar, is a long-term commitment. If I may just give my personal experience, I remember when I started with VDMA almost 20 years back. So when I used to speak to the German companies, their question was, why do we need to come to India? India was not so much on the radar 20, 25 years back. And now it's no more a question of why we need to come to India. Now the question is, where can we establish ourselves in India? And this is a positive trend, I must say, which I've seen with the German companies coming to India. And I would also just briefly like to highlight one more fact, that 20 years back, when the companies were only coming mainly for sales network, sales or service setup, now we find more and more companies, German companies coming who want to invest in India, have their own manufacturing setup, have their own sourcing in India. And I think that speaks of the long-term commitment also of the German industry in the Indian market. And I think this is where we draw strength also, that the German companies are interested in doing business in India and in collaborating with the local industry here. And ultimately, as I mentioned, this would be a win-win situation for both the sides.
Lovely, Rajesh. Friends, you heard it from Rajesh. German companies are looking to set up their shops, looking to collaborate with Indian manufacturers, and looking at India as their global source for many of the components set forth. Sunandaji, from your point of view, considering that both Africa and India are primarily agrarian-based economies, where do you think the synergy lies between India and African countries? And if so, which specific countries, if you can share, in terms of trade and business opportunities in food and agriculture? Sunandaji, I believe your mic is off.
Africa is a continent comprising 54 countries. They have 5 segmented: East Africa, West Africa, Northern Africa, Southern Africa, Central Africa. Entire Africa, they have more than 60% of arable land area which needs to be cultivated. The land is very fertile, the soil is good, but they are not advanced economy as compared to India. So what India can do is, India can be a joint venture partner with them. When we are thinking, our Prime Minister is talking about self-reliant India, self-sufficient India, because tomorrow or one of these days, when we are a growing population, we are going to face the challenge of food security. And Africa is the continent of the millennium where we can explore this possibility and resolve this issue of food security for India. So this is the opportunity which need to be encashed. And what we can do is, nowadays, farmer technology transfer. Many of the companies from Maharashtra, companies from Andhra, companies from UP have come forward, and we have more than, even from Gujarat, we have more than 45 joint venture in agriculture farmer technology transfer done with Africa. We think in terms of West Africa, we are talking about Ghana, we are talking about Nigeria, we are talking about Burkina Faso, we are talking about Ivory Coast, and if we come down, we are talking about Gabon, we are talking about Central Africa, we are talking about East Africa, Kenya is concerned, Tanzania, Rwanda, Sudan is concerned. Country like South Sudan, there are 7 synergies Indian companies have done for cultivating sugar, cultivating carrot, cultivating maize, and also the rice. So similarly, in southern part of Africa, you will see South Africa, you will see Botswana, you will see Angola, you will see Namibia. These are some of them, Zambia as well. There is enormous scope for Indian companies to have joint venture in agriculture. Now, some of the country, Exim Bank of India has already given line of credit so far as agriculture sector is concerned. Like for Kenya, although we have given $104 billion line of credit to Africa, but still agriculture segment is concerned. For Kenya alone, Exim Bank has given $150 million. Some other country, Tanzania, we have given $40 million. We have for Mozambique more than $232 million. So these are given specially to develop the agriculture segment, their sectors. Now, private sector companies are coming. Of course, Government of India is also signing with them, giving them some technology transfer, but we want more and more private sector to take interest in that and have more private partnership, because India is still number 5 position when in the Africa business is concerned. USA is number 1, UK number 2, France number 3, and China number 4. India is on 5. Indians have not taken, the Indian private sector has not taken Africa that seriously. See, we are far behind our target. We were talking about crossing $100 billion trade. We are still on $70 billion. We are far off. So from this platform, I would like to request the Indian private sector that there is enormous opportunity in entire African continent. Let's not be specific about the country. All the countries are having potential agriculture sectors. We can have food processing there. We can have farmer technology transfer. We can have high yield growth there. We can have trading part also. We can have seed management. We can have value added to the product what we are doing. Currently, we are importing cashews, we are importing other commodities from there, we are importing from there. But what we wanted to do is, we want a partnership in real sense. Like if you see, we are now doing a project where we are forming the cluster of farmers. Like we have a proper village where we have different farmers, we form the cooperative, take a big land bank. Like that, we are working on the concept in country like Mozambique, country like South Sudan, because there are no government land available. So company like Jain Irrigation, company like Adani, company like Rajaram Bapu Patil, owned by Honorable Minister J.N. Patil, and Somaya Group. These are some of the names who are very much popular in Africa and doing good.
Lovely. From what I have seen also, Sunandaji, is there is a climatic synergy also from my visits to Angola and to South Africa. I've seen that say for example, mango season in India, we find it in the summer season while there is a winter season because of the hemispheric difference between the two continents. So that
Yes.
definitely arises in terms of processing and fulfilling. Chandramohan, if I can if you can throw some light with regard to the importance of, we're talking about technology transfer, we are talking about collaboration, but then I think at the core of it is the automation side. And automation and the need for automation, especially for the medium and small scale industry, MSME sector, becomes a criticality. So, where does the MSME sector fall, and how should they be looking at it from collaboration and automation perspective?
Thank you for that question. I think it's a very important element in the whole value chain. Uh, See, as India starts emerging on the international, international economic scenario landscape, product quality and consistency is going to play a kind of a very critical role in ensuring that more customers walk in into our basket. And somewhere, whether it is relating to packaging, whether it is relating to food products, whether it is relating to industrial products, if automation, if processes are not something that our entrepreneurs and our MSME sectors does not embrace, we are likely to lose out. That is the headline news. The other aspect that I see is that we are all in a kind of a healthy competition across nations. And if we were to look at South Asia as a region, it is a fact that this part of the world has one of the lowest intra-region trade, versus across the world. This is despite the fact that it is the most populated region. All the GDPs in these parts of the world are growing healthy. There are countries which are growing at 11-12%. So there is tremendous opportunity to be seized, and it comes in all sectors. Now, when you talk about automation, when you talk about access to finance, when you talk about access to good agricultural feedstock, unless we do not bring about structural changes, unless we do not bring in about innovative methodologies, we will not be in a position to seize these opportunities. We are very clearly seeing countries like Vietnam, countries like Philippines, Thailand, countries like Sri Lanka. When it comes to trade and commerce, they seem to be making structural changes much faster. And it is not only in terms of policy, it is also in terms of encouraging the whole innovation chain, whether it is talent, whether it is providing technology, government holding, government kind of providing a kind of a platform where technology exchanges happen, some kind of underwriting given by the governments, some kind of subsidies, a catalyst. All these things, these are extremely important for us to ensure that we have a successful recipe. And India is best positioned, apart from China, in this part of the world to seize the opportunity. Whether it is to do with food processing, whether it is to do with automobile, whether it is got to do with electronics, IT, you name it, we are better positioned given our given our democratic setup, given our talent pool, given our in-house consumer demand. So the headline could be "Make in India, for India, and for the world." So you start with "Make in India, for India, and then for the world." And I think we are best positioned to leverage that particular position.
Chandramohan, absolutely, I agree, because let me add to that. I mean, I was looking at some of the export data of some peripheral countries. I mean, India typically exports about $320 billion of food products. I mean, total exports. And a country like Vietnam, that was almost two-thirds of the total exports that India does. I mean, it's a much smaller country. So there's a rapid, the same we are seeing is rapid development in exports in Bangladesh, rapid development in exports in Sri Lanka, and India has to yet ensure that the stagnant exports that are there over the last few years, they kind of now start moving forward. Mark, I'd like to ask you a very interesting question, if I may. You know, what's happening is in India, if you see the regulations associated with, you know, they are all towards the processing industry. So you have FSSAI regulations that are applicable on the food processing sector, which typically happens post-harvest once the plant or food product or commodities come into the plant. The regulations are not applicable at the farm level pre-harvest. Okay, so where does that similar status stand in US? I mean, are the farmers also regulated, or is there regulations that they have to follow? I mean, we have an extensive use of insecticide, pesticides that's currently happening in India that requires to be curtailed. If that same thing happens in US, how does US perceive its regulations towards farm sector?
Sure, thank you for that question. With respect to how the United States operates, you know, we have a very strong Food and Drug Administration of the United States that regulates and oversees, you know, guidance points for the amount of application of pesticides, for instance, on farms. And the USDA works very closely, the United States Department of Agriculture. So our farming community throughout, you know, the entire different agricultural sectors in the United States, whether it be horticultural products, whether it be livestock, for meat and dairy, or for grains like your corn, rice, or wheat, all, you know, are required. Our farmers and U.S. ranchers are required to follow what we believe are regulations that ensure the safe production of food. And food to be that is further used for processing or that is consumed directly, you know, from the farm. And it's regulations that apply to the smallest farmer, but also to, you know, your larger farms. And I think, you know, these sorts of regulations and harmonizing them, let's say, you know, maximum residue levels on certain commodities, is something that, you know, we in the United States continue to encourage countries such as India to abide by. So when FSSAI makes certain regulations on food manufacturing or on maximum limits on like heavy metals or contaminants, you know, we hope that it's based on sound science and that it is abiding by international standards and norms like the Codex Alimentarius, for instance, through the, I think, the FAO. So, you know, our encouragement to FSSAI, you know, from the United States would be to, you know, we hope that, you know, more regulations are being applied that that are harmonized with international standards based on sound science. And we think that there are some that can be, you know, enforced to ensure food safety for India's farmers and protect the food safety for all Indian consumers and for India's, you know, products that it exports, and also for the products that FSI regulates for coming into India, and that's something that we continue to encourage.
That is an interesting thought, because it's important that regulations with regard to food not only get extended into the post-harvest side, but also the pre-harvest side, because both are very interconnected. Rajesh, perspective from you, and I would like others to also participate in this question. I see the key point to accessing Indian market has been offering quality product yet being cost sensitive to it. At least the mass market of India looks at is cost sensitive and therefore look at good quality cost. So which is why we are seeing when it comes to processing machineries. Indians sometimes look at China for supply of machines. There are also local fabricators, but R&D factor is missing. How does the German manufacturers see this in terms of accessing Indian market and making sure that machinery and cost-effective solutions are put forth in India?
Right. I think a very good question, Sagar, and thank you for this question. Actually, why does, if we reflect or if we go a little deeper, why does Germany stand when we talk about technology? Is basically, if we look at the global spending in R&D, Sagar, on the global average is about 4%. In India, we spend about roughly 2.5% in R&D. The German, on an average, the German companies spend something like 6 to 8% on R&D. And I think that is what gives really Germany the technological edge. Then we also have a system in Germany, the dual system of education, where I think this is very important because the young graduates also get the opportunity to get practical experience, practical training, because although we have a huge number of graduates coming out in India every year, but in fact, as per a study done a few years back, it was found that hardly less than, I think it was 16 or 18% of our graduates are actually fit for the industry. And why is this so? Because they lack this practical, the whole setup of our academic system, the institutions. We miss out on the practical experience what a student can get. And I think this is where Germany has really developed this system where there is a lot of possibility also. In fact, the companies welcome trainees also, interns, and they give them this practical experience. So over the years, I think, Sagar, as you correctly point out, when we look at low-cost equipments, there the German manufacturers would not be able to compete with the Southeast Asian countries, be it China or Taiwan. I think where the German or the European manufacturers have the edge is for high quality, high precision machines. And this is, I think, from my experience, I would, if I can just put it in a very simple form, I think when an Indian entrepreneur, he starts his business, he's looking at a low capital expenditure. So perhaps he would go for a machine from Taiwan or China, which does not, with the capital cost being low. But as after a few years, his business has developed and he's looking at quality products, looking also to export, then I think is the next step he would take, Sagar, and that is where he would look for a German or a European machine. And certainly I think one is the precision of the machine, and also I think we have generally in India, we have the tendency to only go for the capital cost. But you have to look at the life cycle cost. I guess the biggest advantage of a European machinery is the sturdiness of the machine, low breakdown, because after all, if you're having continuous breakdown, you do not have availability of spares. This is ultimately going to hit your productivity and your profit margins, although the capital expenditure may have been much less. And I think that is where the stage I have seen from my experience, at that stage in the second phase, when the business is to certain established a few years, the Indian entrepreneur would then go for a higher quality machine. And that is where I think in that segment, certainly as you correctly say, I would have my consent with you, the Germans machinery manufacturers would not be able to match up at the low end of the pyramid. But at the higher end, I think that is where they really stand out with the technological edge, Sagar. And if you allow me, Sagar, if I can add, you asked the question on automation. If you just allow me a minute, this topic of automation and MSME, I would like to say a few words. See, in India, I think it's very important the MSME structure. We have almost 63.38 million MSMEs in India, which employ around 120 million people. And in a way, we could say they form the backbone of the Indian economy because they contribute about 30% to the GDP of the country. Now, typically where the MSME needs, I think, especially when we are looking at a scenario post-COVID, the biggest challenge for the MSME is the investment part. So I am a very strong proponent of the fact that the MSME needs to take baby steps. Do not go for the whole gamut of automation or Industry 4.0. Look at certain critical aspects in your business or in your process which you can automate. Go for these baby steps which would give you a faster return of investment. Because as we go ahead, Sagar, I feel it is very important that for the Indian MSMEs to survive and really to get the cutting edge, they have to look at automation. And there are several examples. Let us take a very simple example. We all know about robots. Robots have been in application for 20 years. Now, at the especially food processing, packaging sector, where robots would be a costly proposition, you have now the cobots, which are the collaborative robots, which work hand in hand with the workers in India. And it is an extension of the workforce. And especially in COVID time, where the workforce is constrained, where you have limitation on the workforce, I think the cobots are a very good fit. And here I would just end with the 5 Ds. A typical application of a cobot for dull jobs which are dangerous, for jobs that are dull, jobs that are repetitive in nature, jobs that are difficult, jobs that are dirty, and now taking the 5th D segment, distancing. When we look at social distancing, I think here such example, and the cobots have shown that within 1.5 years, I think the return of investment comes from using a cobot. So I think these are the baby steps that the Indian MSMEs need to look at this stage if they have to make their business resilient for the future. And with the disruptions, what we have seen during COVID, it is very much essential that the businesses become more resilient, more responsive to the changing circumstances. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh, and I agree with you, especially with regard to when my experience when entrepreneurs are looking, they are looking at cost-effective solutions, but it's also important to look at operationally effective solutions, because operational efficiency of a plant is also very, very critical and important. And that's where I find sometimes European and Western suppliers are able to match up with regard to the operational efficiency expectations. Chandramohan, my key aspect of my key topic question is, and I want you to throw some light here, considering the food processing space we are in, we are already contributing almost 12% to our nation's economy. We are pretty much the largest employers in India across, as compared to all of the sectors. Where do you think the collaboration opportunities and technology transfer opportunities are as a possibilities within the food processing space? If you can throw some light there. What sector within food processing, or what the technology within food processing can collaborations and technology transfers take place?
Okay, let me give you an example of fruit processing. I think the way we have, and this has happened over the last 20 years only. Mango for tabletop consumption. The both at the brand owners as well as the processing industry kind of started connecting with each other and started sharing recipes, and the product owners or the brand owners wanted in their product to be introduced, whether they are ice creams, whether they are beverages, whether they are fruit pulp spreads, jam, jelly, you name it. They started collaborating with each other. Now, what happened as a consequence of that, and I can speak with some level of confidence when it comes to the beverage industry. Just an example of mango, for that instance. The beverage industry really went out, scanned the whole world, came back, and started co-investing with the fruit processing sector in whether it is in the area of pasteurization, whether it is in the area of homogenization, whether it is in the area of cold storage, cold transportation, bulk packaging. All these areas started getting attention. And today, as we speak, our fruit pulp has started reaching Latin America, the Americas. On this side, it is Japan, Australia. What would it take to move faster? It is, so technology process is all now come in, it is seeped in, it is well soaked. It is now the question of getting into the next level of facilitation, which is around labeling, around pricing, the national barriers, trade barriers, that how do we work around all of this? For example, UK does not allow us to, export certain varieties of mango pulp. So it is these kind of interventions, starting with first a very strong collaboration between the food processing and the domestic industry for recipes for India, for consumption in India. And when the scale increases, you will automatically realize that there will be options emerging, and buyers from global markets, whether it is Africa, Asia, they will come scanning for you, saying that here is scale, here is technology, here is assurance, and how do we start building recipes for our markets? Mango is one of those classical examples that comes to my mind. It is also a fruit which is grown, has seen massive growth at the rate of almost 14-15% over the last, for commercial consumption, over the last 20 years. And that's a fantastic growth number by any standards.
Absolutely, Chandramohan. In fact, we are a dominant player when it comes to export of mango pulp and concentrate. If I remember, it's about 50, almost half of the world total exports in mango pulp and concentrate comes through from India. So,
Sorry to interrupt you, Sagar. And that is precisely what the political leadership is talking about. When the political leader says that I want an Atmanirbhar Bharat, he's not talking of closing the borders. What he's saying is, how do you develop the local industry for the local consumption, build scale, efficiency, economies, and then look at opportunities, across the border. In the process, if there are opportunities to collaborate, innovate, they are most welcome.
Absolutely. And Atmanirbhar Bharat does not mean a closed India. It means an open India. It means an India that is more integrated with the world, and in a way standing proud in terms of local manufacturing also. I totally agree with that. Sunandaji, my question to you, to our audience who are listening, if we have to kind of look at Africa as a market, where do we look at, and what is the road map for it? I mean, how do I go to ensure that I can, say, establish another food processing unit in Africa, or I can access the African market through my own manufacturing facility in India? If you can throw some light into the roadmap in accessing the African market for food processing products. Sunandaji, are you there? Mark, if I can put that same question to you with regard to that, is if you can throw some light and share some thoughts with regard to how to access, or best ways to access the US market for food products, and how should one go about, both in terms of product access as well as in terms of manufacturing facility?
Sure. Well, thank you for that. So in my scope of work, our office focuses on promoting U.S. agricultural exports. So we have, we're in 120 countries, I believe, throughout the world. And one of the things that we try to promote is, is to bring U.S. agriculture to the world, and in response to, there's obviously been a lot of talk about with self-reliant India with Atmanirbhar Bharat, and I know Chandra Mohan had mentioned this, that this is not an effort for India to close its borders. And, that's the thing that, we would continue to stress with India is, in fact, that with Atmanirbhar Bharat, that it's not efforts to completely cut off imports, for instance, and rely on strictly only India producing its own. And we would encourage India and food processors and the attendees, to look towards the global market, because there's always going to be a room. There's always should be space for different markets, both for Indian processors and manufacturers looking towards countries such as the United States or even Africa, for instance, towards marketing opportunities, but also vice versa, especially in this context of COVID-19, where a country, any country that wishes to completely, be self-sufficient, and during a global pandemic, it just doesn't pan out. So, as far as opportunities go, I would say, in the investment opportunities for food processing and manufacturing, it should be done at a global scale and looking towards multiple partners. But to be able to do that requires, reducing trade barriers that look inward, that are focused only on protecting the internal market, and looking towards, breaking down barriers that are in aligning with the global market. I think that would be the first step in having greater market access. I mean, if you look at the Farm Bill reforms, I think that was an attempt to do so. And I think with these farm bills, you can integrate Indian farmers and food processors and manufacturers into the global market that much better. So I think something like that's a first start, but for greater investment, I think you have to look both ways, both for India, like FSSAI, reducing barriers, but also, creating those investment opportunities abroad.
Sagar, you're muted. Sagar.
I apologize. I think I was about, Mark, thanks for those thoughts, but I think we are well beyond our time. I think it's already an hour into our discussion. Time does fly. And we would love to kind of take this discussion offline. I would love to kind of stay connected and try to share whatever thoughts, views, questions that have been received from viewers and the audience, and share it with you guys in case they have any further questions on the same. I again sincerely thank you for wonderful thoughts. We had a really good discussion, and I'm sure this discussion can go on for another hour if required. But again, thank you, gentlemen, for all your thoughts, and I look forward to sharing with you in case any questions come forward.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And thank you for the good moderation also, Sagar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all the.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye. Goodbye. Take care.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sagarji, and all the panelists.
Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we come to the end of the conference for today. Thank you all of you for joining us and attending our sessions. This is Monica signing off for the day, and we hope to see you back tomorrow morning for another exciting day of knowledge sessions. Thank you once again.